and welcome. I'm Harriet Agbinyi. Tonight, stepping up the fight against insurgency, Chief of Air Staff says more platforms to be deployed to the northeast next week. Presidency reiterates its readiness to begin negotiation with Boko Haram only if genuine representatives of the group are identified. Doctors Association raise alarm over incessant kidnapping of their colleagues, seek security cover for members on night duties. And Rwandan soldier serving with the UN peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic kills 4 of his colleagues before taking his own life. On Business News tonight, the Federal Inland Revenue Service collaborates with the Central Bank of Nigeria as it promises to deal with tax evaders.
And on sports news tonight, Tanzania unleashes top squad against the Super Eagles of Nigeria ahead of the 2017 AFCON qualifier.
We'll begin tonight with the ongoing war against insurgency, which appears to be entering a new phase. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, says more platforms of the Air Force will be deployed to the northeast from next week. The Air Chief, who is in Lagos to inspect logistic facilities, also promised that the welfare of personnel and the acquisition of more platforms will be top priority. He gave the assurance that there will be significant improvement in the fight against terrorists in the country in the next 3 months.
Well, I don't want to say that we are not winning this war. I think we are. What we are simply doing now is to re-strategize. We are going through all the activities that we have been doing in the past. And the idea there is to evaluate these activities to see the ones that we need to improve upon, which is why I'm going through all these tours of units. We started with the operational units, about 16 of units that are directly involved in the war in the Northeast. But also we recognize that this logistic command, without logistic, you can't fight war. You need the logistic support to be able to carry out your operations. So what I have seen on ground, I have seen a highly committed personnel that are working to ensure that whatever logistic support we need to execute the war in the Northeast is given to us. As a matter of fact, one of our platforms is moving out of Lagos to Yola by next week, and quite a number are also moving from Port Harcourt. Some of our helicopters are moving from Port Harcourt to Yola. And of course, there are a number of platforms that we want to acquire, which we are forwarding to the federal government.
The Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Sadiq Abubakar. Call it a carrot and stick approach, and you won't be wrong. Just as the military takes the battle to the insurgents in the northeast, the federal government says it is ready to negotiate with the Boko Haram insurgents if the true leaders of the group can be identified and properly represented. According to the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, the government cannot afford to negotiate with anybody masquerading as a leader of the group who will in the end collect money from government fraudulently. Mr. Adesina, who was speaking in Abuja, reiterated the determination of President Muhammadu Buhari to end the insurgency by December 2015.
The Nigerian military have been engaging the Boko Haram sect in a battle of who controls the northeast. The battle, which has gone on for years, is high on the priority of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. At this forum meant to honor the media team of the president, the special advisor to the president on media and publicity explains government's efforts to address the insurgency.
You know, the president first gave a timeline of 18 months to defeat insurgency. Now he has even brought it forward. He said by December this year, insurgency could be defeated. That shows you that there is a lot of hope in the horizon. The president also made it clear during his trip to the US, if government can determine the true leadership of Boko Haram, it will talk with them. It's not going to be a case of some people masquerading as leaders of Boko Haram and coming to cream money like it happened in the past. No. If the leadership is determined, authenticated, government will speak with such leadership.
Aside security matters, President Buhari in the United States also discussed how money stolen from the nation's treasury can be returned to the country, effort that is already yielding fruit, according to the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity.
I plead with the Nigerians, give him a little time. There is serious work going on below the radar, and an early exposure might jeopardize, some of the ongoing work. But much is going on about which Nigerians will be very, very pleased, at the end of this exercise.
The motion is set, and Nigerians are hoping to see how the president will be achieving the promises he made during the elections.
Joining me now to talk more about this development is Colonel Ola Majoyogbe, a retired military intelligence officer. A good evening to you, Colonel. Thank you so much for joining me on the news at 10.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Now, do you think that this decision is better late than never, the decision to negotiate with Boko Haram?
I think that the decision is timely, and government could not have taken the decision without some action or some attempt by Boko Haram or its representatives. It takes two to tango. So if government is saying we're ready to discuss, I take it that Boko Haram has signified intention to discuss. And if I may just make this point quickly, Boko Haram has been receiving constant beating. The 6 weeks before the presidential election, they were virtually wiped out of the surface of the country. So all they're doing now is carrying out bombings here and there. That is not their strategic objective. The strategic objective is to have their own territory and say, this is our country, taken out of the Northeast. I think now it is clear to them that if they took any piece of Nigeria and tried to establish any kind of government, the armed forces are able to take them out. So that is the angle from which I'm looking at it. They are now under pressure. So that's why they're probably saying, let's negotiate.
But then, how will the federal government be able to verify that it is actually negotiating with the main group and not a splinter group? Because remember, the past administration actually tried to negotiate with the Boko Haram, and it was fraudulently, duped of a certain amount of money. So how will the federal government ensure that that is not repeated?
Maybe I should use the hackneyed expression, once beaten, twice shy. What happened on the occasion to which you made reference is very unfortunate, because in fact, the people that deceived and duped the federal government, it turned out, not only were they not representing Boko Haram, they were also not very intelligent people. Now, since that has happened once, I cannot see the government making the same mistake. They would have to be sure that these fellows who are coming to discuss are actually Boko Haram elements and not just a splinter groups or outright criminals. I believe that the government owes that to Nigeria, and I am so very confident, maybe because I'm familiar with one or two of the people involved in this, that kind of mistake will not arise.
So, if you look at the situation as it is now, do you think that the federal government should be looking at taking more of those towns that the Boko Haram has captured before negotiating with them to ensure that their stronghold is kind of reduced?
Yes, indeed. In fact, if the federal government were to act otherwise, it would be unfortunate. You have to keep them under pressure until there's an agreement to discuss. The fighting goes on. And when you are not sure that these indeed are two representatives of Boko Haram, it is only at that point you can ask your own troops to cease fire. But let me also say this quickly. It will depend on what they are coming to negotiate. Are they doing part negotiation for the release of the Chibok girls, or they want to discuss their entire program, which is to have their own country? So we would have to know which one they are negotiating. I think that if they want to negotiate, say for instance, release our colleagues who are in the federal custody and who will release the Chibok girls, I think government should just go all out to accept that. But I have serious doubts about Boko Haram saying we want to negotiate our strategic objective, which is to do what ISIL is doing in Syria and Iraq. I don't see them negotiating that.
So in the eventuality that happens, they come to negotiating table and they propose that, okay, you free some of our comrades and then we'll free those Chibok girls who are in our custody. Yes. And, you know, they decide, okay, that's not what they want. Instead, they are more concerned with the other aspect, as you mentioned. Then what? No,
I think that that would be very impolitic of government. You don't go to a negotiating table with so many preconditions. In any case, as far as I'm concerned, the lives of these 219 girls are so important that whatever government does, in my view, should be acceptable to Nigerians. Let me give this example quickly. An American sergeant was kidnapped in Afghanistan. For 5 years he was held. Americans will tell you, don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't have any business with them. We don't discuss. But this guy was held for 5 years. And America was discussing through third-party elements. Then at the end of the day, they released 5 Taliban suspects for 1 American. And they brought that American back home. So we should be prepared to do whatever it takes to negotiate and get the girls back home. And if Boko Haram wants to continue to fight, let them fight the soldiers.
So what's your take on the federal government's new target of ending insurgency by the end of the year?
I am not very comfortable with that. And I've studied insurgency and things like that for quite some time. It is not regular war. I mean, these guys can do virtually anything. If it was that armed forces of Nigeria captured the 3 states at this time, oh, that's easy. But when you have people going into churches and mosques and marketplaces, how are you going to be so sure? I think what can happen is that by the end of the year, there will be no part of Nigeria under Boko Haram command. I believe that absolutely.
Thank you, Colonel, for coming on the News at 10.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
In part 2, after the break, internally displaced persons in Edo State face forceful relocation from their camp. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.